Yo, Automators, let's learn how to calculate numbers automatically in today's video. In many of our Airtable use cases and projects, we need to automatically calculate numbers. Project numbers, invoice numbers, order numbers, all kinds of numbers that we want to automatically calculate in the background when we add a new record or when something else changes. Airtable offers a field for that, which is called auto number, but it has certain flaws, which we're going to look at today, and then we look at a better way involving writing a simple script. So if you're into writing scripts in Airtable, if you're interested in it, if you want to learn more about it, then this video is definitely for you. But now let's get started and let's get into it. Yeah, before we get started, two things. One, I have an Airtable scripting course coming up, which I'm recording. So please make sure to find the link in the description below. You can add your email address there, and then you'll be notified once it's out. Potentially it is out already, depending on when you're watching this. And secondly, if you like this type of content, oh, balloons. If you like this type of content, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, tell a friend or colleague about it. Would mean a lot. But now let's get into it. So let's look at the agenda of today's video quickly. We're going to look at the auto number field, which I call the bad way. And then we're going to write a script together, which is the better way. And then we look at the ChatGPT way. Because, of course, we can use ChatGPT also a lot to write scripts for us now at this point. But I think it's still good to know why those scripts work and what exactly they do. So let's see what we come up with, and then let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. And then we're going to use the calculated number in order to form some unique invoice or number identifier. Let's call this identifier. And also here, identifier. Sorry for that. So let's start with the one. What do I mean with that auto numbers in Airtable is the bad way? So what even is this? There's a field type called auto number. And if I add more invoices here, then we get the incremented number, which seems pretty good, right? So you're like, Rupert, what's bad with it? What's bad is if I delete these, because I created them accidentally, for instance, or I don't want them anymore, whatever, it doesn't reset. So as you see, it sort of keeps track internally of where we are and just starts with the next one or continues with the next one. So 255 now, if I would delete this one again, this would be 256. It doesn't know about whatever is in this field. It doesn't care whatever is in this field, right? It just gives us sort of the next higher number internally. And that's not really what we want in most use cases. At least in my use cases where I'm using auto numbers, that's never what I want. I want how many invoices do I have here in this table, and then I want to add +1, right? And that is very, very hard to achieve with auto number. I show you one hack which applies currently, which works. So if you change the field type to something else, and then you change it back to an auto number, this actually resets the auto number. So now it would be 252 again. But you would have to do this every time there is a mistake. So it's not really very elegant. It's not really how we want to do it, to be honest. Let's look at a better way. And that is involving writing a script. So let's go to automations. I've already created an automation which is called auto number script. And then the trigger is when record is created. You can use any trigger here, of course, could also be when record matches conditions, etc. And then we're writing a script. The first thing that we want to do, usually in an automation script, is passing the record ID, because the automation script doesn't know about which record is actually triggering the automation here. So we need to pass the record ID here on the left-hand side in input variables. And then we need to reference that record ID, or need to grab that that record ID inside of our code. So we declare a variable input config, and this basically is how we access the input variables here on the left side. It also says I use input variables code using input.config. By the way, down here, I always say this in scripting videos, we have this reference, so you can really go in here and read about any method that exists on tables, on views, on fields, on whatever. So really, really handy to always have this here at the bottom. But yeah, now we have our input config. We can look into this by console logging. So console logging in JavaScript basically just prints whatever is in here or is assigned to this variable to the console here on the right side. And as we see, it's an object. So you see these curly brackets. And then rec ID, because that's what we called it. And then the rec ID of the record that has triggered the automation. Let me actually change the record that triggered to the last one, 250. Okay. The next thing that we want is we want to reference our table. So I say const table for, so I'm assigning, declaring a table variable, and then we get base for the base we're in, and get table, and then I get autocomplete. Here I have 4 tables in my base, invoices. The next thing is we want to grab our records in that table. And we need to use await table dot select records. So plural, there's also singular, but plural. And that basically already does it. So this gives us now all the records in the table, but we want to go a bit further. I want to say once it sort of has that, because we're waiting for it. This takes a while, so we have to await this. This is not synchronous, doesn't happen right away. It's sort of asynchronous. So we stop the rest of the code execution at this point, just wait for this to complete. Then we get something back, result, and we just want the records on that. So basically, this select records thing gives 2 things back. One is an array, a list of record IDs, and the other is a list of actually the reference to the records. And we're just interested in the records themselves. So if we would log this again, just to see what's in there, and I highly encourage you to always log basically and see what's sort of in here. Let's look at it. There we go. We have 250 records, which were in our table, right? We have 250 records here in the table, and we have a reference to all 250. How do we find the highest number now here? The first thing we want to do is we want to limit the record selection to a certain field, because we're not really interested in anything else. I have like 90 fields or whatever here in my table, but we are only interested in that calculated number field, in nothing else. This makes this a lot faster. So the selection here gets a lot faster by basically limiting it to just those fields. Just keep in mind that you will only be able to reference this field and in the end. So you can only get the cell value for this field. Something else that we want to do is sorts. And this, by the way, I also have to look up how that works again. So we just go to, so we just used fields and now we use sorts. So this is like another key here in this object. And then this basically is an array of objects. And the first thing is the field, which is calculated, number. And then direction is descending. And something's not right here. Not fields, but field. There we go. So what are we even doing here? And I can also create a new line for this, so it's a bit easier to read. I'm gonna break here and then basically have the result. So we say only give me the records for this field, but then sort the records as well according to this field. So we need to say which field shall we use for sorting, and then the field, and then the sort direction. And I use as a direction descending, so it starts with the highest number. That's sort of the idea. Let's see what comes out of this, if this even works. And it does. The thing is, we don't really see anything because we're not looking into these records yet, so to speak. So we're not using get cell value in order to actually get the value of those records. That's what we're doing now. So let's say const numbers, just to look at it, map rec. So map is just basically looping over the list of things over the array, in this case records, and then we get the cell value for every record of calculated number, and it sort of creates a new array, but it sort of limits now the array to this calculated number. And then we're logging what's in here. Let's see. And this should give us a long list with 250 on top. There we go. So it's sort of ordered descendingly down. And this is pretty handy because now we know in that first record we have our highest number. And how do we access that first record? We use square brackets and 0. Right? So JavaScript starts with 0, not with 1. And there we go. This is sort of our first record. So we also know the next higher number, right? So const next higher number is numbers 0 plus 1. And now we log next higher number and we get 251. And now all we need to do is we need to update the record. So we say await await table dot update record async. The first thing is the record ID, which we have on our input config. So we say input config dot record ID, and then it's an object with the values. In our case, we want to update the calculated number with next higher number. But we can't do that yet, and it didn't give us the autocomplete there because first we have to turn this into a number field, because we can't do that if it's still an order number field because that's a computed field. But now, exactly now, also those red lines go away because now it's actually possible. So that's sort of the general idea. Yeah, that's one approach of doing it. There'd be more approaches to calculate highest numbers, but this is a very, very easy, very, very handy approach. So let's turn this on and let's create a new record. So this takes a little moment because the automation needs to run in the background, and let's hope it works. There we go, 251. If I do this again, 252, etc. So this is an easy way of how to calculate auto numbers in Airtable. And you'll find this script in the description below, so I link to it, and you'll be able to grab it from there. I add some comments to this just to make it a bit nicer, and I document this a bit after this call, but you can grab it from there. Now let's go to ChatGPT, and let's instruct ChatGPT to write the script for us, because that's what we wanted to do. We want to say, please write an Airtable script, brackets automation script, to increment an invoice number by 1. The field to be used, the number field to be used is called calculated number, and the trigger is create new record. So a record ID will be passed as an input variable. Let's see if that works. Sometimes sort of ChatGPT uses the Airtable web API, not the scripting API. Let's see. And we can basically duplicate this, and we call this ChatGPT. Okay, yeah. These things we know. Okay, there we go. So it's not that different, to be honest. Let's use this script. Let's see if we can just let this run right away. I just copy and paste. I just put this on. And oops, we create a new record. And it runs in the background. And failed. So this can happen with ChatGPT. See, okay, that makes sense. We of course have to change the table name. Let's change this to invoices. Maybe you should have read what ChatGPT instructed. So let's do it again. Failed again. Let's see why. Invalid arguments passed to table update record async. Should be a record, not undefined. Makes sense as well. Okay, this is called rec ID, not record ID. Makes sense. Let's do it again. Yay! Works well. So we didn't have to go through those 10 minutes of learning that script. You can basically just use ChatGPT, but you need to know a few things. Sometimes it uses the web API instead of the scripting API, and for easy scripts like this, it actually is pretty good. So it used a bit of a different approach. So we sort of used the feature of being able to sort our records. And in this case, ChatGPT used a max number way, so math.max, and then basically did also nothing else than just build an array of just the numbers. And then basically take this math.max just looks at those numbers and finds the highest number in that array and then calculates +1. So relatively similar, to be honest, to what we did, interestingly. And yeah, it's always really interesting and cool to play with ChatGPT and see whether it produces results for easier scripts and where you're able to define pretty easily like what you want. It's amazing, and it often really produces the result that you want. We just had to change two things. So the table name I hadn't given, so it wasn't able to basically pass what we need here, and also the input variable. I didn't say that in our case we use rec ID, not record ID. So two very minor things that needed to be changed. Last thing I want to show you is we have a formula field here. So the approach that we take is we isolate the number calculation, whatever number you need to calculate, from actually building a text, which is then the identifier, whatever you have, right? In our case, the invoice identifier is P for whatever. I don't know what that stands for, but let's say it is P in this case. And then 2024 for the year, and then the number that we have calculated in the formula you see here, P and then year of today. This gives us 2024, and then just a slash and then the calculated number. Of course, if this needs to reset for a new year, that would be sort of an would take it a step further, and you would have to adapt the script accordingly. So we don't really have enough time in this video to go over it, but that would be sort of an adaptation of the script for your use case. But that's how you can calculate numbers automatically in a much better way. That's how you find the next higher number in a table. One word of caution with this, and that is that when many records get added at the same time, this can actually fail. And that is something that you always have to keep in mind, because the runs of these automations, they don't run in chronological order. They can run randomly, unfortunately. So this works best if sort of records are slowly added, and if you're not having 20 records added being added, or many records being added at the same time. So that as a word of caution. Yeah, but that's it. That's how you can increment numbers or calculate order numbers in Airtable using a script. I hope you liked this video. Once again, if you're into writing scripts with Airtable, or you are interested in it, you want to learn more about it, there is a scripting course coming up. We're also going to go over ChatGPT and where it makes sense to use ChatGPT, and where it doesn't make sense to use ChatGPT, and why I still think that it makes sense to learn scripting in the first place, even though ChatGPT can write these things for you. Basically, the reason for that, of course, is that you can't debug. You don't really know what's going on. It's very hard to know once there is an error. If you want to use this in a production environment, then I highly encourage you still to understand what is going on. So there's a scripting course coming up. Please sign up for that. But for now, I wish you happy automating and speak to you very, very soon.